Greetings, nerds. This is SNN Nerd. I'm your host, Sarah Belmont, and with me, as always, is our Mr. Producer, Will Polk. How are you doing tonight, Will?
I'm doing very well, Sarah. Happy Hump Day.
No.
No.
Will. We have to do a clean edit.
Okay. All right.
I'm joking. No. Happy Wednesday.
Happy Wednesday. How are you?
I'm doing all right. I feel very disoriented tonight, but I am here. How are you?
Disoriented. What's going on?
Well, I had to do things in a flash, and I'm traveling tomorrow, and I'm anxious, and there's a lot that still has yet to get done. So I'm trying to be present while not thinking about everything else that I need to get done tonight and my anxiety, but it's all good.
It's all good. Hey, we'll have a lot of fun here, so that way.
No, we won't.
Yeah, we will.
No, we won't.
Oh. Hey, I wore the costume for you. That should anytime you get feeling down or whatever, just watch the video and there you go.
Well, it's also the overachiever that you and your familia are. You just have to record a impromptu little video, post it on the web, and it's like, yep, I'm the boss. I'm just like, nerd.
You challenged me, and I always try to honor or respond to any challenge, so that's what I did.
So, speaking of challenges, did you manage to finish Homecoming?
I am getting there. I'm getting there.
It's on episode 1, people.
Yeah. Episode 2. But no, I've really enjoyed it so far. It's just, between, obviously, folks, if you follow our social media, I was at our NC Comic Con this past weekend, so that I was doing that, and then I was planning on I had Veterans Day off, and I was planning on watching it then, but it just, I finally got around to it that evening, and then I guess with Stan Lee's passing and everything too, it was just sort of just didn't get to it. But my goal is over our little hiatus for the holidays to knock it out. Yeah,
I foresee Daredevil season 2 happening with Homecoming, but I'll hold out. I'll wait. I'll wait to call foul.
Yeah. You should know better than to challenge me on that. Now, see, I actually enjoyed Homecoming. Daredevil, Daredevil, well, you know how I feel about Marvel, and folks know how I feel about Marvel. So I know it's probably not the best week to say that, but it is what it is.
Mm-hmm. So how are you doing with Titans?
I am actually caught up.
Right, which is expected. You're a loyal fanboy, but how are you doing with it?
I like it. I really, really, really enjoy it. I had low expectations, so going into it, because with the trailers and stuff and some of the still photos, I think I let some of the toxic, then the doubters creep into my expectations a bit, but I just really feel, especially this last episode where they introduced Jason Todd at the end, spoiler alert, that it's been very solid. I mean, I know you have your issues with Raven, but I really am enjoying Starfire, Beast Boy. Gar is very a very likable character, and Dick Grayson is well, I know you have your crushes on him, but I'm just really enjoying the show.
It's not as bad as I thought it was going to be. It's also not as good as I hoped it would be. I think that so far everything is very thin. and I think part of it is the pace. I almost feel like they're running at a much faster pace than even I would want, because I mean, we had a whole Doom Patrol episode, but that stands alone, and it's just part of this adventure of where really I feel like Dick is going around and just collecting friends for a change, even though he doesn't want family. He's just collecting them. And there's something kind of interesting about that dynamic, especially everything that he's going through. And I'm sure the next episode is going to be very Grayson heavy, but still, it's just, I don't know. I see potential in a lot of these characters. There just doesn't seem to be enough time because Raven's hogging all of the story so far. And like, where's Hawk and Dove? They were supposed to be major parts of it. They had like 1.5 episodes, and
they'll be back.
They'll be back, but by the time they're back, they're going to have the major showdown, and then they're going to be gone again because of hiatus.
Well, see, I feel the opposite. I feel that the pacing is actually good, because that's one of my biggest problems with the Marvel shows. Mm-hmm. Is that just it's a slow burn, and it's just, I mean, it's a true slog for me, and hard for me to stay engaged with those shows. Whereas with Titans, I feel that, yes, I grant you that Raven has shared, the focal point was the focal point of a lot of the stories up to this point. But I think that they had to basically she is the focal point, because that is the key. She's the linchpin to pull all these various characters together for this team to become what we know as the Titans. And so, and we're getting touches from various plot points why she is so important as far as her powers and stuff, especially with the Doom Patrol episode, and learning where she had stayed in that home. And we get more details about her background and stuff. So yes, it is fast paced. It is laid out like your typical serial versus drop everything at once and you just binge it at one time. But I just feel that pacing wise, is good. I think story wise, it's better than I anticipated. I think I'm actually engaged with the characters and actually have become invested in the characters and want to see where this journey takes us. And I think it has the right length as far as season time as well, without any unnecessary filler.
Right. No, I agree with some of the points, obviously not all of them. It's just, or maybe it's just I'm kind of superheroed out, because I like the Marvel shows, so I've been keeping up with those, and I'm kind of just like at my maximum.
Yeah, and that's what,
hero for life.
I hear you. I hear you. I mean, we yeah, I mean, it is a very crowded landscape, and probably I think that's one of the reasons why we dropped The Gifted, was because
it sucks. Okay. I'm sorry. I am not gonna apologize for that. We came back, we watched the first episode, and we were kind of like, how about not?
Yeah. And I've engaged with some folks just social media with that are really, really enjoying the show. But then I also saw where the Council Bear put it as a show that's possibly going to get canceled after the second season. So again, it's one of those things. I think people, everyone has their taste. We're not saying you're right, you're wrong. We're not that show. But it's a crowded landscape, and if you're not bringing it, then something's got to give. And
right, or if you're just not engaged with what's happening, like you don't really care.
Yeah, and that's exactly. And I didn't care. So And neither did you. So we were like, okay, we'll strike that, and then hopefully we'll catch up on Homeland. So we'll have something else to talk about other than superhero shows.
They dyed the son's hair. They bleached it, and they didn't explain why in the first episode. I don't care then. I didn't care. It's just a new duo, right?
Yeah. So stay with us, folks. We do branch out, and we'll be doing some other things other than superhero shows. But if you love your superhero shows and you love our talk about it, then stay with us because we'll feel that as well.
Yeah. All right. So let's go into Supergirl. Because this is going to be a short conversation.
Yeah.
It's Parasite lost. It was funny watching it the other night. It's not that it was, I've seen worse. I've seen worse episodes of this show in particular. But I also feel like we had so back-to-back amazing episodes that to come into this one, it felt very generic. We've seen it before. Mm-hmm. Way too much Kara. Can we take it down a notch on the Kara? That's my one note for the writers. And I just couldn't get into some of the side plots that were going on. The one that kind of I grew to enjoy was the one with Alex towards the end. Mm-hmm. Because I didn't really understand what was going on. And the interactions between her and her supervisor started to play out, and it continued to kind of do a double cross, and you're kind of like, well, what's happening here? Which was really interesting, and I shame on me because we all knew this, like John was the head of the DOC. An alien, and those first few seasons, he was hiding his alien part of himself. So it kind of was really, I hope they expand on that point a little bit more, because to parallel what's happening with National City and a realization their president was an alien is kind of really interesting, to go from like the grand scale to John's story.
Yeah. I have been enjoying this part of the general coming in and basically like, I'm in charge. And you're right. Shame on us for not seeing those parallels earlier this season with John and the president. But it is indeed sort of flows into the larger arc that they have developed so far this season, and going into that, thinking of James and Lena and Ben Locke, how he's manipulating James to be the human savior, and playing on those fears of people. And the xenophobia that is very present in National City and in the country at the time. It really, like you said, it was a bit of a, I guess, change of pace episode, given that we've had such strong performances. I mean, Sam Witwer's killing it this year.
Killing it.
Yeah, and so it was, this episode was a little like, okay, let's draw it back a little bit. We'll focus on Jensen and his crazy, Star Trek Wrath of Khan, Parasite, taking powers from all the various alien residents in National City. I just felt like, I even commented to you in a DM this week, I felt like it was a bridge episode just to get us through. It didn't carry the story forward too much. It did a little bit as far as just the manipulation of Guardian becoming a champion for the Children of Liberty or Age of Liberty, and becoming the quote unquote human hero. And it was very telling how James earlier in the episode really talked about prejudice and not wanted to fall into the trap when he was watching Ben's videos and stuff. And by the end of the episode, he was like, maybe he does have a point there, and maybe I can use this to my advantage. But which was very, very reckless and naive on James's part.
I agree. I felt like the last few minutes of the episode really is when you saw the plot progress. Mm. So the rest of the episode was all filler. It was all like, here, this is our starting point. This is where we need to end. Let's see these characters get from point A to point B. End of story. Mm-hmm. And I, again, like, that's the other thing. I like all of the stuff going on with James this season. And James hasn't always been a character who I'm like, I like your storyline. But this year, how they're interweaving him with, in particular, Ben has been really great. And just go back to his performance. That scene at the very end, very, very end, where he goes from a maniac to hello, and then he's on the phone with James, and you start to see him like visually just decompress and become somewhat human, and it's just, that's incredible to watch.
It was.
Yeah.
I mean, it made up for the other 40 minutes of just fluff.
You knew everything that was going to happen with that stuff. You could see it play out right in front of you, and you're kind of like, yeah. Okay, I don't care about any of this. And it's really interesting to me how all of that revolves around Kara. Mm-hmm. And yet I'm sitting here like, I don't care about any of that. I care about like these fractions that you're giving to these other characters, because it goes back to that one standalone episode with Ben Lockwood where Kara and him hardly ever interacted in that entire episode.
Yeah.
And so I'm wondering how long they can pull this story, because at the end of the day, this is still Supergirl, but how long can they push the story without him really becoming her true villain? Like, so far he's an antagonist for a lot of other people, but it's not necessarily him, it's who he represents that's really a threat to Kara.
It's a very good point, and there are a few things that, as far as Kara, that really irked me in this episode. One, it's like, okay, you need to call your cousin Clark and Lois Lane as far as reporting tips. I mean, hello, if you're going to write a story about someone, shouldn't you do research? I mean,
thank you. Mm-hmm.
For one. Two, I think the bigger thing where she still seems oblivious to some degree of the xenophobia and things that is going on in National City, and it's really, I mean, it's very frustrating to see that, and
it makes her come off as one note.
Yeah.
Like that, the moment when she pitches her idea to Naya and about writing stories about the aliens to get people to understand who them, I'm thinking it reminds me of Ben Lockwood and his whole pitch, like, well, when are you going to write about the humans? And I'm kind of like, Kara, this is why the humans are upset.
Yeah.
Why don't you get like it's interesting that I feel like she's very one-dimensional in this plot, because all she can think about is trying to protect like the aliens, but Kara is also somebody who struggled to become human, and so I just wonder how she's reconciling that, because her sister's human. Like why isn't she talking more to Alex about it?
Right. Yeah, that's a very good point. And again, it's one of those things where, in other Arrowverse shows where we feel like the hero's sideline and it's not about their story, this season, given that Kara has been somewhat sidelined, has actually made for a stronger season to date, allowing some of the supporting characters to shine, and in particular our antagonist this year with Ben Lockwood. So,
Yeah.
We'll see. Yeah, we'll see how it goes. And there's still the Russian Kara that's out there as well, and how she's going to play into this whole storyline too. Maybe that'll be something that'll happen either pre-mid-season break or maybe it'll be the mid-season finale where they finally come head to head.
Yeah, it's interesting that we've only had a few teases of that plot point, which a lot of us going into this season thought that would be the first half.
Mm-hmm.
So we don't really understand what's exactly happening. But I want to know how all of these writers' rooms, like how much they communicate with one another, because very similar thing is happening on Arrow right now. This week's episode of Arrow did not feature a flash forward tease.
It did not.
And I'm finding that the episodes of this season I like the best are the episodes that include the flash forward teases and plot points. Because that builds momentum, that builds mystery, that makes me really engage with the show. An episode like The Demon, what? It's all it's not that it was like I've seen worse. Like, this is why I'm not upset talking about these shows. I guess last week we just came off and we're like, okay, we're feeling good, we're feeling the momentum, and then don't screw up, and then what? They screwed up. Because in particular, Curtis and Diggle. I love Curtis and Diggle. I did not like him in this episode. I thought it was distracting. I did not understand how that whole arc fit with the rest of the picture. I missed Renee and Dinah. Dinah was in this episode, but she wasn't partnered with Renee, and I thought that was very odd because they've been central characters to pair up in these past few episodes, and I thought that has been building a good, solid, C arc.
Yeah.
But then they throw us Curtis and Diggle, and the only thing I can think that I took away is that the writers are doing a good job of taking every single Team Arrow member and really giving the viewers an understanding on how each of them is handling Oliver in jail differently for their own reasons. Like, it's that non-vigilante part of them that has to be silenced right now has different effects on every single one of them.
Yeah. And I agree with you that the Curtis arc, while I think was an important story to tell, did feel a little out of place tonally in this episode.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. It could have gone in a different episode and probably made a whole lot more sense.
Yeah, and it just seemed kind of thin, and it was like, oh crap, we only have probably 2-3 more episodes with Oliver in jail, so we need to do this now. And right. So it just did feel kind of tacked on. And it really, they had so much to explore there with Curtis and his decision to, after, because I think it was either this episode or an episode before, we talked about all the things he lost, where he lost his marriage, where he's lost his many things in being in this vigilante life, and they could have used that as a springboard to have that what transpired in this episode flow from that. And maybe there were, and I guess on some level it did work because I'm talking about it right now. But I just think this tonally with this episode, and given what was going on with the A and B stories with Oliver, and even with Felicity and Laurel and Dinah, it just didn't seem to fit.
Yeah, and I don't think we saw Curtis last episode.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's actually been a few episodes, and that's why it was so disorienting. I'm like, right. Oh yeah, Argus. Yeah. What are they up to? Yeah. What's going on? and And I'm kind of like, man, this whole argument between Diggle and Felicity, because she's on this whole hunt, and she never went to Argus. Like, she went to the SCPD before she even went there to use their resources, which was interesting. But this is actually the first time I've enjoyed an all-female team-up on Arrow.
Yeah.
There was something about that scene when they're going through the files where I was like, this is your Birds of Prey. Where's this movie? These three are very different people, and they have actually pretty good chemistry, which is like, why didn't I realize this before? Well, because they hardly ever share screen time together.
Exactly. I love those scenes. Yeah, I did. I actually, now that you mention it, when I was watching it the other night, and I had the same reaction that you did, and that them working together and just doing old fashioned, work. I mean, Felicity is like, the hacker extraordinaire, and just having to dig through old files, and just the interplay with the three of them in the file room was just it was very strong chemistry. So, I think one of the plus things that season 7 has done so far, in my opinion, is by having Oliver and Slapside, as far as it's given the opportunity for other members of the cast to get these types of pairings that if he were still out in normal storytelling circumstance, we would never have gotten these pairings. And
yeah, it's like the opposite effect on Supergirl.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe. So speaking of Slapside and Oliver, what is your take on everything that happened between him and Dr. Parker?
Oh, I have really enjoyed this arc with him, with Oliver this season, and just the back and forth, and Parker trying to get him to question himself, question his will, question all his motivations and things that he's done over time. And it's, I know some of this we've seen before as far as the soul searching and whatnot, but I think it's different this time for me, at least, in that this was a consequence of his outing himself, and also I think Parker being the agent to I guess the agent to like try to just doing the interrogating instead of an internal kind of struggle that Oliver may be dealing with because of a moment of self-doubt or something like that.
Oh, okay. Well, you haven't watched Homecoming, so.
Okay. Yeah.
While you were talking, I just realized something about why I probably have a different take on this story arc than you do. If you like this story arc, watch Homecoming. Homecoming does it 10 times better. Really fascinating. This is a boiled down version of it, and it is interesting. And I to go back on what I said last week, when I felt like it was repetitious and explaining things that we already knew, I felt like this week the plot was a little more nuanced, especially because they brought in Talia, which Talia is the daughter of the demon. So shame on us again for not being like, oh, that's the demon. Oh, obviously that's Talia.
But yeah, I don't know if it's shame on us. I think people can toss out there and say, well, I figured it out. Bullshit. No, you didn't. If you did, we would have seen it.
Yeah.
We would have seen people say, oh yeah, the demon is Talia al Ghul. No, don't go there. Don't go there. Because if you did see it, you're lying. And so, because
Yeah. Yeah, and what by them having her be the demon, it plays off of everything Dr. Parker's doing, because she took the exact opposite approach with Oliver. And she also represents another quote unquote monster whose father basically passed down to her, like how she behaves, that cycle of violence that Dr. Parker was going on about.
Right.
And then the fact that Oliver killed her dad and everything, it all made a lot of sense. The fight scenes, okay, I know you don't like Daredevil. The hallway fight scene, classic Daredevil move, like that choreography, and I liked it. I liked Oliver and Talia fighting side by side. I really enjoyed that.
I did too. I mean, I'm not gonna kid. I mean, I was like, that's a badass moment.
Yeah, it was pretty awesome.
Yeah.
And so it's interesting to me that all around this is probably a really solid episode of Arrow. It's still not my favorite though. Like it's still, I didn't stop watching this episode and was like, oh, I can't wait till next week. I was more like, okay, all right, I'm good.
Yeah. I mean, it was an enjoyable episode. I mean, I think sometimes we may want to get we want to get blown away every single week, but
yes, high standards,
very high standards, and sometimes you need those changes of pace, and I really enjoyed this week's episode. I am looking forward to seeing how things play out, because now I want to know how the questions I need to have answered. How did Talia get that, the flash drive to Felicity and the team? And
an assassin. She's part of the League of Assassins. She knows how to swiftly move swiftly.
Yeah, she knows how to move swiftly. I mean, and also, I mean, I think our Sarah, the other Sarah that we had on last week and her review this week, raised some pretty good points too. It's like, what's reality and what was not, and how much of this mental game was in Oliver's head, and clearly some of it definitely was real, because obviously we had the tangible results on the outside. But to get into your point as far as the PTSD and the psychological drama that was going on in the episode, those are some, again, plot points that will still need to be addressed. Obviously there's we can't go, shame on us if we don't mention the little mention of Gotham.
Yes, thank you. Finally. Yeah. Okay. It's that woman, right?
It's gotta be.
Because here's my thing. If it's not that woman, we know there's a Bruce Wayne on this earth, because Oliver has referred to him before.
Yeah.
Now, if Talia went up, faced off against Bruce Wayne, okay, all right, lame. Because I am so scared about the crossover. I am so scared that they're going to set up Batwoman basically as an Elseworld tale, Like her whole story, arc is going to be spun off, and I'm going to be like, why? Kara already lives on another Earth. Why does Batwoman have to live in another reality? And it's just, I'm just worried about that. If they really want to build this as this expanding universe, then I don't know why it has to constantly be tethered with Oliver and Barry, and that these other characters that they're trying to bring in, and we're going to get to another one who's not included, for better and for worse. But it also feels very limiting. I feel like it's all for show almost.
Well, yeah, I mean, I hear you, but I think there's been, between all the shows, for example, with the Flash season 5, there with Nora raising other members of the Justice League. We do have Superman, but I guess he is under 38. Maybe Batwoman is. Hopefully is, if not a member of Earth 1 or Earth 2. Hopefully she's on Earth 38 with Kara and Clark.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, that's my hope. That's my hope. Now, we'll see how it plays out. So far, the teases that finally we got the 2 teases that dropped this week, and one was, it seems that the Arrow, I guess, let's see, they're reversing the order. So Arrow goes first this time in the crossover. So somehow Oliver and Barry switch, and maybe we'll obviously learn how that happens. And
Iris doesn't switch.
Nope.
And which Dig doesn't switch.
Right.
And I can only assume Felicity doesn't switch. And based off of some of the still photos I've seen, it kind of feels like Kara doesn't switch.
Right. Yep.
Which is another thing that pisses me off. Like, Kara should be a part of it.
Yeah. So here is where Kara is probably a part of it. Here's where I think the Monitor comes in, because that's been one of the characters. The Monitor is one of the guardians of time and continuity in the universe. Wherever it seems like everyone else has been constant, so there is some external force, which hopefully they haven't spoiled everything. They usually are pretty good about keeping something under wraps. That is the catalyst that causes Barry and Oliver to switch, given that it seems that everyone else is constant. So I think that's my theory going into the Elseworlds crossover, is there's some other external force that has caused the switch, and that's why the Monitor is important in the Elseworlds crossover.
All right. Well, now that we've covered why the Monitor is important, Sarah's fears are totally put to rest. No, it'll be fine. I'm just, I can't set myself up for unmet expectations. So I try to keep them low.
Keep them low.
And that way, they're typically always pass. But anyways, speaking of another show that's quasi in the universe, quasi not, Black Lightning.
Well, Sarah, I know I DM'd you last night to say watch Black Lightning, because I thought of you when the opening happened.
Yeah, because Winter Soldier.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was. So here's a funny little tidbit. I literally watched this episode an hour ago, and because I just got home, I needed to eat, and I was watching the opening scene, and I'm like, Winter Soldier, and I got up and I walked away, and then I came back and I sat down, and Henderson was talking to Jefferson and Anissa, and I'm kind of like, what's going on?
Yeah.
And it took me a while to realize that they were talking about Gambi being dead.
Yes.
Because I literally missed the end of that whole sequence. Because I thought it was like a flashback.
Oh, did you? Okay. Yeah, no flashbacks. But, given that it was a very Winter Soldier-esque, well, hell, it was straight up Winter Soldier. There's got to be a trapdoor. I just can't. I'm like Jefferson. I just can't believe that Gambi's gone. And plus, that just blows up your fan fiction. So
the whole episode kind of is about that whole kind of. They really want you to think that he's gone. He's not gone. I've seen enough crazy stuff on this show. He's not gone.
No.
It just doesn't make any sense. And Nissa's reaction was interesting to me.
Yeah.
Nissa continues to be a confusing character this season.
She's
I forgot about Grace. I know there was one interaction earlier this season, but it seemed like there had been a falling out, and now suddenly they're not. And then they
did fall. They did fall out again.
They They can't keep bringing back Grace, like just like how Gamby's still alive. Grace and Anissa are going to be a thing again in the future.
Yeah, yeah, they will be. They will be. I think. We talked earlier this season how Anissa is how it has flipped from Jennifer not being one of your favorites on the show to now Anissa being that, and she is a very complex, fickle character in that, but also a very interesting character to me as well, because she's more than just talk as far as just trying to seek justice, because she's working hard to go work in the clinic and doing, obviously, basically playing Robin Hood as far as inverse Robin Hood as far as taking from Tobias's gangs and using those funds to help provide for the clinic. But then it's as far as her personal life, she's just a complete wreck. and a very not likable wreck. Whereas I think Jennifer this season and her relationship in particular with Khalil, she is very, very sympathetic towards his plight, because they're both prisoners of two individuals. Khalil being a prisoner of Tobias, who every moment he gets, he is just teasing Khalil's demise, and then Jennifer just feeling just trapped as a prisoner in her own home because of her parents being overprotective of her going out and possibly getting again, being a target of Tobias and painkiller.
I don't know about that. I honestly don't think Khalil has had any opportunity to really talk to her. I feel like anytime they meet up, it's mainly about her and her issues. Because that's Jennifer.
Yeah, that is.
So I am not fully sold on that idea of her being able to relate in that way. I think that she views him as a connection to what she thought her life was going to be.
Good point.
And in an instance, it's a nostalgia thing. It's a first love thing. It's her childhood essentially is all tethered to him because she's no longer at school. She's no longer around her friends. So there's a connection there. And that also proves that it's something that was never meant to be, and her whole arc is going to be how she figures that out and learns to let go. Like, just as with any teenager, you start to realize that some things were fine when you were a kid, but you grew out of them. You move on. You have to continue moving forward. You can't hold back. I think that's also going to come to a head because he also needs her as his anchor because she's his last connection to everything. Like the life he thought he was going to have. But he also doesn't have that foundation that she does with her family. She only has Tobias. So I'm fine with it. It's not as melodrama as it was last season. Yeah. And to go back to your point with Anissa, it's just, I don't know. I don't have the attention span to invest in her relationship with Grace if that's not going to be a continuous thread that's moved out through the episodes.
Yeah, I think they'll at some point they're going to have the creative team's going to have to make a decision. Are they going to, like you said, make them a couple or not? Because this back and forth where like Anissa just goes to Grace when whenever she's dealing with some shit is just it's getting very tiresome as a viewer, and so yeah, they just need to decide, okay, they're going to be together or they're not, and stop this back and forth stuff. Because, I mean, I feel like Grace is like, really, you come to me whenever you like, you just need some.
It's like they want them to be a heterosexual relationship. Which doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
just, you can have these two women be together and not make it play off like another heterosexual relationship you've seen on different shows. You can have more nuance.
Yeah.
I mean, part of my thing with Grace is it's not just either put them together or don't put them together. It's more like either put her on the show or don't make her a character. Because I am very confused as to what she's supposed to be in terms of this whole storyline moving forward. Yeah, she's a love interest clearly, but she's also somebody with power, so she should have a stronger presence.
Yeah, she should be more than a booty call, definitely. Yeah.
Meanwhile, another weird story arc in this episode was with Lynn, because that went quickly. Like, that took a turn real fast.
And and it was one of those things I saw that was one where I was like, Lynn, why are you falling for this? It frustrated me seeing how that played out, because I'm like, Lynn's a very intelligent woman. She knows what Doctor has done in the past. And why did she like just agree whenever she came in there praising, like, oh, we figured it out, that she believed her? No, that's not the street smart Lynn that we know. But I think but I guess it plays to that conflict that we were hoping we would see with them, and also with the agent told her, like, you own this, and she definitely has blood on her hands now.
Yeah. Speaking of blood on your hands, okay, it's not blood, it's some freaky crap.
Yeah.
When are they not going to be experimenting in Freeland?
Oh, when they go over to South Freeland.
like this is, I don't know what's happening anymore, but they may have more than just green light babies on their hands.
Yeah.
This may become the story of the ooze. Oh, speaking of that. Did you notice that the title changed this episode? It's no longer the Book of Consequences.
That's right. Yeah.
It's the Book of Blood, right?
The Book of Blood, yeah, it is. You're right. And wow, that's deep.
Well, it's odd, because last season I felt like it had the continuous book throughout the full season. And so it's weird that suddenly they switched it up so early, even.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's not like we're coming back from a mid-season finale and starting a new book.
Right.
But I mean, a lot of what happened in this episode was about blood, and both in the metaphorical sense as well as like the reality of it.
Yeah.
So, but it's. I thought that was a little Easter egg in there.
Yeah, good spotting.
Anything else about Black Lightning?
No. I think again, we'll just we'll see what happens with Gambi.
See what happens with Gambi, or what doesn't happen with Gambi, which my fan fiction will still go on, because Lynn even nodded that they had a very complex relationship.
The story will never die. The story continues.
They don't have to mention it, but
they don't.
Oh man. Okay, so that is it for us tonight. sorry we could not watch Cover the Flash tonight. That's partly on me. But we will be back in a few weeks. We are going to take a hiatus. Enjoy Thanksgiving with our families. We hope everybody else who's listening has a safe, happy holiday week. And we will be back the following week with more Arrowverse breakdown. And maybe Will surprise me and finish Homecoming. Maybe.
Be ready.
Yeah.
Hey, be ready. Yeah, let's be ready to talk Homecoming when we get back.
Yeah, that and so much more.
Exactly.
Will, why don't you tell our listeners where they can make some holiday TV recommendations to you?
Yes, you can make your recommendations to me at Will M. Polk. That's WILLMPOLK.
You can find me on Twitter at SJBelmont, SJBELMONT. Please follow our crew on Twitter at CNN Nerd. Friend us on Facebook, follow us on Instagram, but most importantly, rate, subscribe, and comment on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Spotify. Good night. Geek out. You're welcome.